guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. Today's just one of those days where the trash is taking itself out. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Curtis Lepore. I thought we were done with this. I thought Jessie could have peace in her life, but apparently not. So what we're going to be talking about today is Jessie Smiles and Curtis Lepore. So they were both Viners. They were in a relationship at one point. She accused him of raping her. He was arrested for that. He took a plea deal. That essentially seemed to be the end of it. However, recently he has made a statement on Twitter. I don't know why particularly now, because I know he couldn't talk about it at first, but it's been long enough that I don't understand why he's bringing it up again. So he put out a statement and Jessie put out a statement in response. I'm going to tell you one thing. Based on his statement, there is a detail he left out. I'm going to read his statement and then I'm going to tell you what he left out, and you can decide for yourself if maybe that was a strategic choice, which I thought it was because it makes him look better to leave out that detail. Oh, also Keemstar's trash, and I'll explain why that is. So, Curtis Lepore's statement reads, "To all, this statement is by no means an attempt to discredit or discard anyone's feelings, but merely to tell my side. For too long, there has been one narrative to a very complicated and unfortunate situation. It is important that I clear the air for myself, my family, and friends. Sexual assault, abuse, and or harassment is something that unfortunately plagues our society and should never be tolerated. It is quite literally one of, if not the most degrading, disgusting, and violating actions one human being can do to another. Fortunately, we're living in a time where there are many positive conversations taking place about a human being's right to choose what they do with their body." Did any of this really need to be said? No. In 2013, I entered a very public relationship. We started dating. We cared for each other. We made Vine videos together. We were on the internet as a couple, and that was real life too. This was a real relationship that did involve consensual sex on many occasions. Our relationship continued over the next month. The week before the incident, my former partner was staying with me at my apartment while visiting from Miami, Florida. During that week, the conversation of the two of us waking each other up with sex came up on two separate occasions. It was stated that this would be a nice way to wake each other up, by both of us. A fellow creator and mutual friend of both of ours would later confirm to me that my partner told him that these conversations took place. Later, this mutual friend would verify this with a district attorney who handled the case. The following week, we would break up, yet still spoke daily while she was in Los Angeles. Several days after the breakup, we were in contact as we had been, and while she was filming a video for social media, she injured herself and reached out to me shortly after. When I spoke with her, I immediately asked if she was okay and offered to take her to the hospital. She refused and stated she wanted to see me and asked me to pick her up, so I did. Upon picking her up, she ran up to me enthusiastically and hugged me. Once in the car, she immediately proceeded to make physical sexual advancements, of which I reciprocated. This took place on the drive back to my apartment. Once in the apartment, we spoke briefly. I went to the bathroom for several minutes. She laid down on the bed. Once I came out of the bathroom, I got into bed with her and made sexual advancements, and due to her reciprocated actions, I assumed she was lying there with eyes closed waiting for me to join, but not asleep. Although there were physical reciprocated actions by both of us, there was never any verbal consent. I thought this action was okay due to conversations that had taken place the previous week, the history of frequent consensual sex that had taken place as recently as days before the incident, and the physical sexual advancements from the moment I picked her up throughout the car ride back to my apartment. Almost immediately after I began, she opened her eyes, she jumped up, and I did as well without any hesitation. She ran to the bathroom and stated that I had raped her. I immediately felt confused and mortified. I cared for this person deeply and would have never done anything intentionally to hurt her. Shortly after the incident, I took her back to her friend's house and was extremely apologetic. That night, I learned that regardless of any sexual history, relationship status, physical sexual advancements, or any previous conversations which gave consent, if explicit verbal consent is not provided prior to any sexual act by both parties, then no sexual activity should take place. 2 weeks after this incident, I received a phone call from her. I was unaware this call was being monitored and recorded by the police. I was told by her that she needed closure and needed to move on with her life, and she needed me to admit what I did was wrong. I was extremely conflicted at the time of this call and felt I was being manipulated into admitting guilt. She kept saying that I knew what I did and to please just admit it so she could move on. I eventually did admit what I did was wrong. I wanted more than anything for there to be closure and for this to be done, as I never wanted to hurt anyone. 1 week after this call, I was arrested and released on bail. Shortly after my arrest, I had to decide between going to trial and defending myself or to take a plea deal. In order to make an informed decision, I reached out to our close mutual friends and discovered that my former partner was sharing intimate details of our relationship that would support my side of the story. Our mutual friends were all fellow creators and or people within the entertainment industry. These people did not want to be associated with this very sensitive situation publicly, so with no one willing to testify in trial, the recorded phone call, and seeing the pain being caused to everyone involved, I felt that the best option was to accept the deal. 1 year later, after completing weekly therapy and appointments and 24 hours of community service, my charge was reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor assault, and the case was closed. I think that is worth noting that my former partner agreed to the plea deal of a lesser charge. My intention from this moment was to move on with my life, and hopefully everyone involved could do the same. I was legally not allowed to speak about this for 2 years after the case was closed. I began to get aggressively harassed and threatened online daily. I was referred to as a rapist and often told to kill myself as jail was too good for me. I know that I am a public figure and that comes with high expectations, but I am a human being, and the predominant emotion I felt in response to this was anger. Unfortunately, this did not lead to the best public responses by me, and for that I'm sorry. I thought that if I just continued to do what I love and keep moving forward, things would get better, and when the time was right, I would tell my side. As the narrative of the situation became more and more one-sided, I retreated, and when I could have said something, I chose to stay quiet as I was afraid to speak and or do anything. Sexual assault, abuse, or harassment is awful and disgusting. It should not be tolerated, but neither should be one narrative in certain situations. I hope this statement can positively add to the conversation of everyone's right to choose what they do with their body. My passion is to create content. I aspire to inspire, and as long as I can create something that other people enjoy, I will continue to do that. So needless to say, this was quite long-winded, and frankly, it didn't say much. However, this statement would sound a lot more different if he had included the fact that the injury that Jessie had was a concussion. So she slammed her head. It wasn't like she hit her finger or she bumped her knee. Her head. The thing that you use to make decisions. She made a statement, and I'll read that as well. But in her statement, she mentioned that she told him she felt sick. She mentioned that she felt dizzy. He even wanted to take her to the ER. But when they got home and she lay down after saying she felt sick, he thought that was the right time to get it on. And even if you did want to get it on, if someone told you they feel sick and they slammed their head, would you not ask, are you sure? Are you okay? Like, wouldn't you be extra sure, specifically because, first of all, yes, you want to get consent. That's obvious. But on top of that, if you know someone's in a compromised position, why would you not even ask if they're okay? Why would you not even ask, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Should we just wait? Why would you not ask anything? Why would you not clarify? Frankly, if I were in his position, I wouldn't have reciprocated and I wouldn't have done anything, because I know that if my significant other or ex-significant other wanted to do something, but they just slammed their head, I wouldn't think that this was the optimal time to engage in something that requires thought, aka thinking, do I want to do this, yes or no, and deciding. So I just don't understand who would do that. Like, what sane individual would be like, yeah, they slammed their head, let's have sex now. I'm sorry, I don't get it. However, I have to say, the fact that he specifically didn't include that it was a concussion does make him look guiltier, because it's like, surely if you're so guiltless or if you're so innocent, you would mention that detail, would you not? Just wondering. The trash can that is Keemstar responded to this and said, you should have fucking said this immediately. You let her call you a rapist over and over again for 5 fucking years and said absolutely fucking nothing. I got so much shit because I did not believe her story. You said nothing. Here we have Keemstar making somebody else's rape about himself.
So much time with your ear to the pavement. It's a pity a truck hasn't run over your head.
I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. Sometimes I don't understand his impulses to film. Like, what made you sit down and think, oh yeah, let me respond to someone's rape by saying, oh, you should have told me, I got blamed for siding with you. Do you not have a publicist? I think you should hire a publicist, Keemstar, because this is not a good look for you. Anyway, Jessie made a statement in response. Curtis Lepore, the man who raped me, put out a statement nearly 6 years later about the night it happened. This is my response. I know it's super long and I'm sorry, but I had a lot to say. If you had just spoken your truth without lying about that night, there would be no response for me to make. I'm not here to tell you that you can't speak, but what I'm not going to do is sit back and allow you to speak the lies you've convinced yourself of and belittle me again just like you did when everything became public. Here's the truth. I have never publicly talked about the specifics of what happened that night. Why you felt that was necessary to provide your innocence is bizarre, but since I remember vividly and there are actual witnesses to back my side up, allow me to rip this band-aid off and say what actually happened. From a person who has never changed her story. From a person who's fucking shaking because you felt that it was appropriate to put me in this position where I'd have to respond. Let me tell people what really happened. Curtis and I dated. I broke up with him about a month after, and he didn't take it well. He was rocking back and forth and telling me not to go, that he loved me. I left my stuff at his house and had my manager come and get it because I was genuinely scared. I don't know why, but something made me feel like he would do something to himself or me. I told my mom and manager this that day. We did not speak daily after this, as he is stating. The only reason we became friends again is because he called my mom, who he barely knew, and would tell her how much he missed me, cry to her, just ridiculous shit. So to get him off her back, we became friends again. I knew it was way too soon, and I told him this, but we became friends again regardless. One day I hit my head when I was vining and started feeling dizzy. I tweeted about it. A lot of you remember. Curtis and I were broken up at the time, but he saw the tweets and became concerned. I was alone in LA, so he texted me and offered to come and get me from my friend's house. I said, no, I'm okay, really. He insisted. I refused. He replied, I'm coming over, Jesse. You're not okay, and I know your friend's address, since he had picked a friend up from there before. He even called my mom on the way to get me to let her know he was going to check up on me. He picked me up. I was so loopy and dizzy from hitting my head that he became concerned and spoke with a friend that I'd been staying with. She was out of town. He told her I wasn't doing well. This friend later offered to testify in court for me, but it wasn't needed since they had a confession. He knew I wasn't myself. He knew I wasn't feeling well. On the way to his house, I asked if he had bought the couch for his new house yet. He said no and asked why I was asking, and I said I wanted to sleep on it, so that he knew I was not interested in sleeping next to him. He told me, you shouldn't be sleeping anyway with a concussion. We got to his house. I was so tired, so I made a beeline for his bed. He had a bunch of stuff on it, so I pushed it to the side and jumped on. I started closing my eyes, but when I did, I started feeling so dizzy. I told him, I feel so sick, and he was comforting me. Those are the last words I said to him, an exact quote, before I woke up to him having sex with me, unprotected, unprovoked, full-on sex with a person who was supposed to be looking out for. A person who was asleep and sick, a person that didn't have the chance to say no. I've never in my life told Curtis Lepore that I wanted him to wake me up during sex. The only thing we ever spoke about in regards to that subject was things I did with my ex that were all planned and consensual and did not involve actual sex. How he takes that one story about my ex and interpret it as something I wanted him to do to me is truly sickening. I'm not surprised though. Him and his lawyer tried to justify what he did by showing the court that I've talked about sexual things in my past online, as if that's a free invitation to do as you wish with my body. Curtis, I did not pressure you on that recorded phone call with the police. I said, I need closure. You need to tell me what you did to me. Did you know I was asleep? You said yes. I asked, did you take my clothes off me while I was asleep? You said yes. I asked, did you know that you raped me? And you said yes. What innocent man on one single 10-minute phone call can be pressured into saying that they raped someone? Were you also pressured into confessing what you did to Alex James? Was your mom pressured into telling Rolling Stones that what you did was loving me, wake me up? P.S. I didn't agree to a plea deal. I had no control since it was the state of California against you, not me against you. Surprised you don't know that. I don't know what you've had to tell yourself over the years to justify what you did, but don't you dare, after doing what you did, put false shit out about that night, because that night is the reason I still can't have sex when I'm feeling tired. Why I distrusted men and cried after sex for years. So no, you don't get to just decide what happened. The truth has consequences, and the life I have endured after the night is proof of what truth was. I'm disgusted at how you justify it all in your head. I'm disgusted that you won't see that night for what it was. I'm disgusted I have to relive this publicly again. I'm so fucking disgusted, and I'm so fucking tired. Then Alex James, who was mentioned in the story, tweeted, this man really forgot he told me that you were asleep. So we have a second person confirming this. Frankly, I'm angry for Jessie that she has to deal with this again, because I don't really understand the purpose of what he tweeted. Now let me explain. I understand that he's trying to make himself seem innocent. That's obvious. But it's like, if you take out this big thing of her actually having a concussion, you're doing the opposite. You're not helping yourself. You're making yourself seem more guilty. So I don't really think he thought it out, or he thought people would just forget that. I don't know what the point was. Also, I have to say, I'm kind of stunned at the timing, because I'm not saying that Christmas stops life from happening, and I'm not saying the holidays stop life from happening. But at the same time, it just seems like a very strange time to bring this up, when people usually spend time with their family, when people tend to be already overwhelmed between gifts and family gatherings. It's a time when people would like to be happy. So to do all of this now, I don't know. I guess I don't really understand what the point was. That being said, I hope that Jesse's doing okay. I hope her family's doing okay. If you're gonna talk about something that happened and take out one massive part of the story, that doesn't help your case at all. It really doesn't. And I don't know if there's anything that could help your case. There's nothing I can imagine that would help you look any better at all, aside from taking responsibility for what you did and not trying to discredit anyone. Because at the beginning of his statement, he's like, oh, I'm not trying to discredit anyone. But yeah, you're trying to make it seem like her story, that her version is more dramatic and that the reality was it was a miscommunication, but it's like, why are you acting like there wasn't a concussion involved? Anyway, I could go on about this. I'm gonna shut the fuck up. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think he did it on purpose to avoid mentioning the concussion? Because I did. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.